start off with Pedro Alvarez. What do you think Pedro's prospects are for the second half of the season?
He's overachieved to this point. 24 home runs should indicate that, and really the 250 average is sort of high.
You think it's overachieving?
Yeah, I feel like it might. I mean, he could end the year at 250. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like an overachievement for Pedro Alvarez from what we've come to expect from him. The one thing I will say is home run to fly ball right now 32%, 3-year average around 25%. So he's hitting an abnormal amount of home runs, and he's increased his fly ball rate this season. So not only is he hitting home runs at a more regular pace in terms of per fly ball, he's hitting more fly balls, which are leading to more home runs. His line drive rate is up too, so that's nice to see. That's helping the average a little bit, but I would expect some power regression in the second half.
Now, do you think it's possible he's still a young player, that he's, as opposed to coming into somebody else's own, that he's coming into his own?
That he's coming into his own?
This is what we have here for Pedro.
An above 30 home run to fly ball rate's sort of outrageous, at least from a...
What's the norm?
The norm for power hitter? For power hitter, around 25%, around what he was at. I mean, you can go above that in any given year, but 90% of the time it regresses back to what you've already done. You sort of establish your power trend, and then moving forward, you follow it every year.
Right.
You can have little slight aberrations, but a 7% jump is a lot.
Bryce Harper, who was hitting line drives all last night off of his dad, and his dad was throwing him those cut fastballs. I didn't think that was really fair. They tried to explain it away, but I don't know. Why didn't he just throw him a splitter, for God's sakes? I don't know. So how's Bryce looking the second half?
I like his outlook. He's top 10 outfielder, potential to be much better than that. Does everything. He's your classic 5-category contributor that you like to see in the outfield. He's going to be worthy of probably where he was going this year was probably a bit inflated. But
I look at his swing, and he's going to grow. He's going to be a slugger. He's got a violent
He's already
swing,
a slugger.
But I wonder, and I'm curious. I'm not doubting. I'm really curious to see where his batting average is. He was like a 270 hitter in his rookie year. He's slightly below that now. He's kind of there now. I don't know. I think people assumed he was going to be this 300 hitter.
I think he's a 290 hitter.
Oh, that's cutting. I mean, that's...
I don't think he's quite a 300. Almost like a Prince Fielder type. He's not quite a 300 hitter, but he still has an average that contributes in fantasy.
Yeah, to me, that's disappointing with a man with all that hype. You thought he was going to be...
Yeah, you know what? I'm sure he has seasons where he hits 313 or something like that, but I mean...
The average is not going to be what he's known for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's going to be known for being a great all-around player with a ton of power, and I think the home run derby showed that, and because he was just hitting missiles. They weren't skyrockets. They were just line drives right out of the park, just hacking at it, and which is kind of strange because his line drive rate is way down this year. You would think that would go up, and it's really led to...
Well, he doesn't have his dad pitching to him.
That's true, but the decrease in his line drive rate has led to a drop-off in his batting average of balls in play. It's down this season, and it's down almost 40 points. So if he can somehow regress back to what he was doing last year and hitting more line drives, you're going to see that average spike back up. That's why I say 290. I'm trying to middle in between. Let's say he gains 20 points in batting average of balls in play. He's up to 285. Maybe he goes slightly higher than that. And then you're dealing with a very good average and a guy who contributes in every single category, which not many players do in baseball.
I was thinking about it, and we just spoke about Pedro Alvarez. And had Pedro had used, Pedro Stroop to pitch to him, he would have won the competition hands down.
Hey, if Chris Davis just got the Blue Jays rotation to pitch to him, he would have won.
Let's move on to Michel Cuddyer, who was... some people had a problem with Cuddyer being in the competition because David Wright picked him. He was a childhood friend, promised him he would do it. Where do you see go? He's having... It's not really a career year. I look back and he's had some decent years.
He's had some decent years.
Two really good ones, actually.
But he's your class... I mean, there was no bigger proponent in the first half of Michel Cuddyer than I am. I have him on the time.
274 career hitter, and he's been around quite a while. So
he has, but he's like you said, he's shown seasons where he's hit around 300 before.
Yes,
rarely around 330, and that can be attributed to a 366 batting average of balls in play. His career rate's down around 310.
Now that can't be a Colorado thing because he played in Colorado last year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is just sort of a luck-based thing. He's making good contact. He's putting the ball in play, and the balls are dropping where people aren't. Eventually, that switches the other way, and you start hitting it at people. So in the second half, I don't see a ton from Michael Cuddyer. I think
Well, he's got 16 home runs now. He had 24 in 2006 and 109 RBIs. And in 2009, he had 32 home runs and 94 RBIs. Does he have a chance to eclipse either of those two seasons?
I don't see the home run total. If he's not on pace right now to eclipse the 32 home runs, I don't see it happening for the second half because I expect him to drop off a little bit. But he could potentially get to 30. I think the RBI numbers are pretty solid, especially with Tulo back.
If Tulo plays, he doesn't get hurt.
Now that Tulo's back, and now that Carlos Gonzalez is back to full health again, and if they can get any production from the top of that lineup, now that Dexter Fowler's back as well. So he has the potential to drive in more runs and maybe crack the 100 RBI barrier. But other than that, I see the rest of his stats sort of not falling off a cliff, but not being nearly as productive as he was in the first half.
You know, in the league that I'm in, people are talking about when it comes to, as we're getting close to the trade deadline, Michael Cuddyer and getting offered, he's not a keeper because of his age and so on and so forth. If he puts up a solid season this year and you have him for a good price and you're in a keeper league, is he somebody you would shy away from because of his age? Or no?
Well, it's funny you bring this up since I'm the one who owns Michael Cuddyer in this league you're talking about. And I have him at a good price. Right now, if I get to keep 10 guys, he's going to be one of my keepers for $8. Why not? Even with a drop-off,
You're annoying a lot of people in the big show right now.
Hey, look, I didn't expect him to be a keeper when I drafted him, but I got him at $3 in the auction, get to keep him for an extra $5. At $8, if he puts up 75% of the stats he puts up this year, he's going to be worth the $8. I don't see why he wouldn't be a keeper. Age shouldn't play a factor into it. I'm not going to keep him for the next 10 years, but just for next year, he's a fine keeper. Dual position eligibility, plays in a good ballpark, hits in a good lineup. It's perfect.
David Wright, ladies and gentlemen, he's hosting the All-Star game apparently.
He's the face of the All-Star game.
Yeah. So, to me, what separates Wright from, third base is loaded, especially in the American League. They just had too many guys that couldn't. Donaldson's not there.
It's not loaded fantasy-wise, though.
No, well, what separates Wright from the others, to me, from third base is the stolen bases.
Oh, big time. Big time.
I don't
think that
people pay attention to that. Fantasy baseball and regular baseball, that stolen base thing separates. It makes a total difference, and it's the reason Mike Trout is so better than everybody else. There are people who hit as many home runs, people driving as many runs, people score as many runs. Nobody who does all those and steals
40-something bases, exactly. And especially at the position at third base, there's no one even close to Wright, unless we're talking.
Who's the next? Who's the closest?
I believe it's Jason Nix.
Does he even count in fantasy? Does anybody have him?
No, that's the thing. It's the guys that trail Wright are a bunch of guys you would never own in fantasy because the only thing they do is steal bases.
Right.
So they're not ownable.
There might be somebody who's a dual qualifier, somebody.
Yeah, even those guys. Not really. There's just really no one close to him at all. That's really what gives him separation over the position. And the fact that he's hitting above 300, he has 13 home runs, and he plays on the Mets, so he doesn't drive anyone in because no one's ever on base. So that's rough.
To me, he hit a couple of balls to the warning track last night, which is pretty much where he usually hits them.
The only thing, there's really no difference between his year this year and his years of the last 3 years. All his numbers, his advanced stats, everything is just even across the board. He's just running more. That's really the only difference. Now, he has experienced second half decline the past 3 seasons. I don't know if it's a thing with him, and there was always a thing with Dan Harris.
1 year he got hurt, though, didn't he?
1 year he did, but the other 2 years he didn't, and he just didn't perform the same way after the break as he was performing.
Mets fell apart the last couple of years second half. Now,
how can you
he may have had something to do with that. The fact that he wasn't performing well in the second half.
The fact that their only good player was not performing?
Yeah.
Led to a downswing? I can see that. So, but anyway, he's hitting more fly balls this year, which has led to more home runs, which is good. Right. But his home run to fly ball is exactly the same as it's been the last 6 years. He's just hitting more fly balls, which is good for home run stats. So right now, he's on pace for a pretty epic season from a third baseman. He's a top 15 overall player. I don't know if he can keep it up, but right now his batting average of balls in play is .347. Now you might look at that number and say, wow, that's really inflated, but his career BABIP is .339, so it's not out of the range of aberration. So there's not necessarily regression coming. So I wouldn't expect the batting average to fall off unless you believe in this sort of second half drop-off, which he's experienced over his career, which is a hard thing to predict. I guess if it happens over time and time and time again, it's a trend. but there's no real logical point to it unless he just wears down, and that's
Right.
you would expect being a professional athlete. That wouldn't be the case.
So going forward here, second half, Alvarez, Harper, Cuddyer, Wright. Who do you like most? Who do you like least?
I like
going
Bryce.
forward?
I like. It's a toss-up between Wright and Harper, obviously. They both contribute in all 5 categories, which is something that you really like to see. And, I mean, Cuddyer, to a lesser extent, does. He has the same amount of steals as Bryce Harper. I would expect Harper to steal more in the second half. But, that number would be
he was hurt, too.
Yeah, that number would be higher. So was Cuddyer.
Yes.
Cuddyer had a DL stint in there and then missed some extra
But
time.
didn't hurt his leg.
No, he hurt his rib. I feel like that would be...
You don't run with your ribs.
That
would be awkward.
Your ribs hurt if you run. I can tell you that much. But it's not like he's a speedster. He's getting a lot of these steals on the back end of Tulowitzki, or he's getting them, or not really Tulowitzki this season, but on the back end of Cargo and other guys in that lineup. But going forward, I guess with position-wise, David Wright is the most valuable because at third base he is sort of an outlier in terms of speed, and he just that gives you so much more value over the position. Where at outfield, there's a lot of guys, not a lot of guys, but there's far more guys that do what Harper does. You have Mike Trout, you have Carlos Gonzalez, Ryan Braun, who's a great second half sleeper. Matt Kemp, when he comes back, should be able to do these things. Andrew McCutchen. So I guess it's right, but I mean, personally, if I were redrafting today, I would probably want to take Harper because I still feel like he has the better upside. He's the one who can hit more home runs. He's the one who can steal more bases. The only thing that I can actually see from this point on that Wright finishing ahead of him with, steals, maybe if Wright continues to run at this pace, and average.